WWT presents Experts.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as always. And today, we're going to have a conversation about retailers and how they're growing into an ever-expanding array of digital channels. Got mobile apps, social media, e-commerce, chat, text messaging, all the in-store technology that's out there, and much, much more. And as customers, we enjoy kind of unprecedented flexibility and convenience. However, this expansion also introduces more layers of complexity when it comes to retailers' back-end systems and all the platforms that they have to have in place. So we're here today with Jay Custard and Andrew Bryden to help us understand unified commerce and why that's a priority, what the best practices are for retailers to consider as they move forward with that idea. This is one episode in a four-part series we have on the retail industry and how retailers are thinking about AI and data, cloud, security, and of course today's topic, unified commerce. Jay Custard is with us. He's a chief digital advisor with Worldwide Technology, and he's really a deeply experienced digital strategy and e-commerce executive. He's worked with across multiple disciplines and really companies of all sizes, both directly and as a consultant, to transform retail on a global scale. He really loves blending together user experience, analytics, marketing strategy, merchandising, and technology to optimize retail for our clients and their customers. And given his deep retail background, we're delighted that he's here with us at WWT and he's here today. Also with us is Andrew Bryden, who's been with Worldwide Technology for 10 years, and he's an executive director of technology. So in that role, he provides leadership and guidance to the teams that are building software solutions for our clients. And he's also regularly collaborating with those clients to understand their business strategies and then interpret those into the technology solutions that we put in the market with them. And often that's including e-commerce. That's why he's here today. Andrew, Jay, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you, man.
Great. Well, let's jump right in. So, we've covered unified commerce in past expert episode with Chris Douglas. So if you're interested, you can check that out on WWT.com. But, really quickly for those who might have missed it, Jay, what do we mean by unified commerce? And, what does that look like in the retail industry?
Yeah, great. Got to make me go after Chris Douglas. Awesome.
Yeah.
Got to recap. It's really around what you talked about, right? We've done a really good job, I think, of expanding those customer touch points and ways by which we can, try to get sales and engage with customers. But unified commerce is really the extension of that. So it's taking all of those sales channels, all those touch points, all that customer data, all that loyalty information, and starting to merge that with some of those back-end systems that don't often make it in, right? Around inventory management, supply chain logistics, all that back-end stuff that sometimes gets lost in that omni-channel shuffle. And that's really the difference. Omni-channel was all about the front end, like really integrating and combining all the touch points that really impacted the customer. Unification is really about building a business strategy and a system of record that allows for us to incorporate all the things that really make a business go so that we get better real-time decisioning. We can build those seamless customer experiences the way that they expect them in order for retailers not only to survive, but really thrive in this modern world of retail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. I mean, great perspective from Jay. The other thing, and coming from the technology perspective, it's about breaking down silos within the organization. And that sounds like a big idea, but really so often we have these back-end systems that just traditionally haven't talked to the front-end systems. And digital has been treated as something different from in-store experience, really getting to a unified technology system that helps run these businesses and deliver good experiences for customers and employees.
All right, well, Andrew, let's dig a little bit deeper into that and why retailers should be continuing to invest in adopting more of that unified commerce approach, right? What value and insights are retailers really able to unlock by breaking down those silos and moving in this direction?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. I mean, I'll start with why should companies invest in this? More and more of these systems are the drivers of business. Particularly, these digital systems are no longer a supplementary component to the shop front experience or the restaurant front experience or whatever part of retail you're in. They really are becoming the core of the business. And I think a lot of what we've seen in the past is people really investing energy in individual systems. Jay gave the example of inventory systems, but we could include staffing systems. We could include just classic IT systems in the back end. And I think what we often see is these systems haven't talked to each other. They haven't worked together. So when we talk about unified commerce, it really is about a unified technology platform to run businesses. Increasingly, there's not that big distinction between, hey, here's my commerce platform and here's the rest of my IT platform. And really the value that comes out of that is the amazing data that companies already have today, but tend often not to own or really have a way to extract value from. So, helping companies look at what they have today and how can we integrate those systems to really get the most value out of them so that at the end of the day, that's a positive experience for customers, for employees who are seeing the benefits of these things. And it could be as simple as balancing what sales and promotions look like to the customer with where the inventory is and where we're predicting future inventory is, really being able to tie that data together in a way that is seamless to the people who are using these systems, not putting a big load on employees to have to do a pile of manual work, but really using technology for what it's good at, is automating these things, letting them operate at scale, letting them be efficient.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jay, I want to ask you to comment on this too, because it seems to me from a consumer standpoint, we expect that seamlessness that the promise of unified commerce presents. But is that really happening all the time for the customer experience? And how's this affecting the employee experience for these retailers?
Yeah, Andrew's right. There's so much that's locked away in some of these legacy systems. And I wish I could go back to all these really smart technology people that I worked with back in the day, right? I wish I'd give them a hug because, we just moved faster, right? We went and looked for different ways to kind of work around that. And the customer experience suffers, right? We do a lot of things in the omni-channel world around how do we bring on new automated ways by which to deliver a promotion or to make sure that we reach out and we have a sales channel where they can at least, connect the dots and we know who they are and they can go ahead and complete a basket. But that's a limited view of those relationships, right? It's almost as if you're meeting a friend and every time you meet them, you have to ask them for their name again and what their interests are and where they've been, what they're up to, right? Nobody likes that type of kind of limited view, right? You go find another relationship. And the reality is in retail, customers have more switching power and more control than they ever have before. And if an experience is fragmented, they will go away. So even omni-channel experiences that don't take in the accountability of where things are, how quickly can I get it delivered, the pricing structures, is the inventory there when I go into a store? Those things are lacking. So we get a part of that customer experience, we get a little bit of that, but there still are friction points in there because we don't have the full visibility of the entire enterprise to bring to bear so that we can connect all those dots and make it that seamless friendship and relationship that everybody wants. And the downside effect on that is employees have to work harder. So think about being in a contact center where I have 6 systems that I may have to log into in order to answer a basic query around where's my package, right? That's the reality for a lot of our customers. And it's a reality of just things moving quickly. COVID moved us all to this digital world. We all became really, really good digital consumers. The stores are now becoming a larger part of that. And these legacy systems have to keep up because we know people on the floor in retail are working harder. They're being asked to do more things. Retail's always been a struggle from a staffing perspective. Back in staffing contact centers, how do we give them all the tools that they need so that we can build that customer experience, but also enable that through massive improvements on the employee side as well? And that is the promise of unified commerce.
Yeah. And Jay, man, those friction-y customer experiences, consumer experiences make me nuts, right? Because I know what's possible technically, and I sort of have that expectation. And I think increasingly more and more do. Retailers and everybody's getting better. So I appreciate that that's progressing. But to really do that, Andrew, I'm curious from your point of view, like what systems should retailers really start with first, and how do they prioritize the systems to move forward with relative to getting to that vision of unified commerce?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think sometimes overwhelming. In a situation where you've got to keep the lights on, you've got to keep delivering, and yet it's clear that changes need to happen to technology. One of the big changes I think we see is this evolution from the point of sale really being the default thing that the customer interacts with to just now being another component in the system. It used to be a lot simpler. You'd go into a store, you'd order things, someone would work there, they'd punch it in. That was really your touch point with the experience. And I think more and more people are expecting that as part of omnichannel, there are a lot of different touch points there. And the technology hasn't necessarily moved to reflect that. So there's a huge range of adaptation within the point of sale industry that I think is a great point to start looking at. A lot of companies, particularly during COVID, had to try and make e-commerce work. In the moment, we had to get this done. We had to put a solution in. And I think a lot of people would admit that that was done in a hurry and maybe not in an optimal way. So I think this overlap between point of sale and e-commerce is an obvious thing now to go back to a few years later and say, is this really a system we're now building for the future, or is this just something that got us past a certain point? And then I think there are so many opportunities to then start to look at some of these other systems, the back of house systems, the staffing, the inventory, the customer relationship. But I do think the core e-commerce platform, the point of sale, they're really good places to take a long look and say, is this really technology? And we know the refresh cycle isn't quick on these things. People are locked in. You've got to keep running. Often there's lots of locations where there's a physical need to change out a point of sale, but that's usually a great place to start within retail.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jay, I want to come back to you and ask, how you mentioned this earlier, but tell us a little bit more about how retailers are using unified commerce to really blend together the digital and in-store experiences, and how's that sort of playing out in that smooth, seamless customer journey that I think we expect increasingly as consumers?
Yeah, well, I would say it's kind of a mixed bag, right? I mean, there's some people are doing it well, others are not, and we're all scrambling to do it. I think, the core of this, right? Unified commerce is more of a strategy and a philosophy, right? There isn't one single product or system. It's going to end up there, right? Where you get a golden record of all these things coming together. But what really happens, it's a forcing function to break retailers who are notorious for being kind of channel centric in terms of incentives and who owns it and how we keep score and how we force that. Really what this is it's a rally cry, right? To really kind of think through this in a very different way, to think of this in truly customer centric terms, to get away from this notion of channels and get away from this notion of, who gets credit for a buy online, pick up in store, and how all does that stuff work? Because that really becomes that need state, right? Where you build what does the customer need at any given point. We've done a really good job of kind of building our P&Ls around, where does product fit in and how do companies, build their construct around digital and brand and merchandising and store operations. But this is really about where does the customer expect us to show up and have something that maybe they don't even notice that it was frictionless, right? It just works. And those are the experiences and the things that people continue to drive back toward all the time. So a lot of that stuff really comes into, are you making me a promise that you can keep? Did I buy something online and it's going to be there when you say it's going to be there? Is it truly in store? Can my employees stay on the selling floor, confidently look at a tool that tells them that, yeah, we do have more of these here and it's in aisle whatever, right? To really kind of just enhance that overall piece. And how do you then drive loyalty, not just through promotions and points and things of that nature, which are important, but how do you do the little things that when you service and you make expected promise dates on delivery of where my goods are going to be, things of that nature, right? How do we continue to bring those to bear? Unified commerce is the way home, and you can't do that by just focusing on the in-consumer touch points or MarTech or just those pieces. It truly is an enterprise level view of where inventory is from the time it's placed on a factory to the time a customer gets it, owns it, and re-ups within that buying journey.
Gigamon offers a deep observability pipeline that efficiently delivers network-derived intelligence to cloud, security, and observability tools, helping organizations to eliminate security blind spots, reduce tool costs, and better secure and manage hybrid cloud infrastructure.
Well, let me ask you, maybe both of you, your opinion about, what is there a particular company, if you want to name or sort of industry, like, is there a particular experience or retailer you think is doing an excellent job of this? Or like what pieces out there do you see like, wow, this is really good, what this company is doing?
I think if you look at the Apple retail experience, right, that is a unified commerce experience that most people have seen, touched, feel. It just feels different, right? You're at the center of that, from the way the stores are laid out, from the way you set up appointments for service, to the way the goods are delivered, right? Amazon does this well, Walmart does this well, Sephora does this well. There's a lot of exemplars who are on this path. And what I would argue is that unified commerce isn't necessarily an end state. It's kind of the goal, right? There's a lot of conversation about adaptive commerce and the way you get there through composable and things of that nature. So I think it's always an ongoing journey. And we've been able to lead a few of our clients here at Worldwide through this, right? We've done a great job of really putting the customer at the center of the Schnucks experience, right? A regional grocer here who really made that concerted effort to get that to be the focal point of how they drove their business, both through self-checkout in stores, their new loyalty programs, how they merchandise stores, how you flow through that ongoing journey so they can increase basket size in an ever-increasing world of grocery competition. Going someplace with a major, global company that's doing a lot in the QSR space of wanting to be 100% digital. Putting the customer at the beginning of that and then really integrating all those systems allows them to think through better optimization of labor and how they move inventory around when commodity prices go up. And we probably shouldn't promote that. We need to promote these types of offers. So those are some companies that we're seeing and we've helped with. There's plenty more, and we're more than happy to dig into each and every one of those case studies on the platform. But there's a lot of great examples out there that, but no one's got it figured out. That's the point. You've got to jump into this journey and you've got to start making steps to move down this path.
Yeah. Well, and if you're interested out there in some of that work we've been doing, wwt.com, we've got some great case studies that you could check out on this topic. Well, Andrew, I'm going to come back to you. And so, imagine if we're talking with a new client in this space and they're ready to get started with their unified commerce journey. What are those first actionable steps that you would counsel them to think through and to take as they move forward with that?
Yeah, what we'd always recommend is stop and figure out where you are today. Have a look at the technology you have in front of you. And that can be overwhelming because as we start to talk about more and more of these systems, it becomes a lot. And it's surprising how intertangled they are. Often not in great ways, but the last thing you want to do is pull on one thread and break the system. So we really recommend looking not just at the architecture, but the business stakeholders. And the next step to this, and I think what's important through this, and again, I wear the technology hat, but I think we at WWT fully understand that if you don't bring every part of the business along, this is a futile effort. There's no good having the IT people sit down and stare at this thing through an IT lens. And absolutely, the IT perspective is important. Often the folks who are in the trenches running this technology understand bits of the system that are fragile, bits of the system that are expensive to run, bits of the system that, hey, no matter what may make sense as a business, you're just not going to be able to extend this part. So you really have to bring everyone along with you to say, not just at a technology level, what do we have, but who are the people who interact with this? How does marketing's needs vary from someone working behind the counter? How does that look different to someone who's looking at it from purely a financial basis? And once you've got those stakeholders, then you need to ruthlessly prioritize. And that's a difficult process. But ultimately what I see is, even as a consumer, the companies that are most successful are the companies who choose the things to do and do them well. They don't try and have one of everything and treat it as a list of check boxes to, hey, we've got e-commerce and, hey, we've got a loyalty program and, hey, you can redeem that at the point of sale. If they're just three different terrible experiences, it doesn't matter. So ultimately, from the technology and business combined, there's a prioritization to say, what does it make sense? What's our differentiator? And a big part of this conversation is, which bits of this system to us as an organization are important that we own? What are the things that really drive value for our customers? What are the things that differentiate us? And what are the things we should just go out and buy? And in most cases, it's very rarely one or the other. Hey, just buy an off-the-shelf solution that does everything for you is not very compelling. At the same time, it's not realistic to build all these systems. So it's a conversation around prioritization, but also what are the real things we need to own here? And all through this, it has to be buy-in. There's no good marketing saying we have to own this or IT saying we have to own this. If those answers don't line up, that's a recipe for failure in any sort of technology project. And then the next step to this is to get real, to make it concrete, to lay out a roadmap, and ultimately with that buy-in to get some budgets behind it. But this is, you want to do it incrementally, you want to build, you want to learn as you go. But ultimately, you can't take this on in an ad hoc way. You can't have one group over here who's working away a part of the system and another group over here who's off purchasing things. It happens more than you'd like. And I think getting that shared vision is probably the key thing to this. Where are we trying to go as an organization? What technology advantages do we have today? What things are holding us back? And really getting everyone heading in that same direction.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's 8,300 at last count. I'm sure I'm way behind on things that promise personalization or omni-channel experiences in the space, right? And the business side in the past, in the omni-channel days, right, got unlimited investment. We could go buy whatever we wanted, right? And we went and we did that. And we bought point solutions and we bought shadow IT is quite frankly what it was, right? The IT prioritization process was something that most of us want to avoid at all costs. And I think what Andrew is saying is spot on. This isn't one side of the business versus another side of the business. And this isn't about somebody ceding control. The companies that we mentioned that do this well, the business and the people that make the operations go and the IT groups all have an equal seat at the table. I think the world has shifted. Omni-channel brought forth, go build the customer experiences that matter, build something that differentiates you in the space, and we'll learn from there. We're starting to see IT become less order taking, and at the end of this, and they're becoming more the strategists and the enablers of this. Organizations have to embrace this, and they have to build those complete kind of understanding of a roadmap about who's going to go do what and when and where. Because make no mistake, this isn't a singular monolithic platform that's going to deliver unified commerce. There's probably going to be a golden record somewhere. There has to be a system somewhere that brings all this information together. But you're going to need a lot of systems to deliver the experiences and the outputs ultimately that deliver for your customers and your employees.
Well, as y'all talk through all of that, something that comes to mind for me, Jay, is the need to really shift organizational cultures within these retailers to embrace, the unified commerce approach we're talking about here. And some of those shifts are for line level employees for sure, but It sounds like it has to go all the way through the organization as well. So I'm curious, Jay, from your point of view, as you're talking with clients, how are you coaching them to think through the cultural shifts they need to make within their organizations to really get the most out of unified commerce?
Yeah, I think, kind of a silly way to look at this is look at an org chart, right? If an organization and a retailer has a really complicated org chart, I guarantee you there's ways that business is falling down to their customers. It's just real, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you look at, do we measure things by channel contribution? Are we thinking in a multi-channel way rather than a unified commerce way? I guarantee you're leaving opportunity on the table, both for your employees as well as for your customers, right? And those fragmented experiences, because of the way we're organized to, who gets credit for a buy online, pick up in store conversation goes on ad nauseum in retail. It has so many downstream impacts around how do I measure the efficacy of my advertising spend? How do I understand my store operations and where I need to put employees on the floor and what are their expectations? How do I communicate that and when things are going to be ready to my customer? Just little things like that we've all become so accustomed to. Companies have done a great job of making that work behind the scenes. And to their credit, there's a lot that just gets shuffled under the rug. Now is a time to stop, align on where this customer needs to be, where the employee journey needs to go, and truly step back and align cross-functionally how these channels and these silos and these things that we tend to kind of build our own weird incentives around get blown up, because without integration at the senior level of the organization, how we're going to keep score and what we're going to drive toward, this isn't possible, right? And I don't think that unified commerce is a nice to have. I think this is an imperative. I think this is a way not only to survive in modern retail, this is the only way to thrive. And those that don't embrace this concept and break down some of these regimented things we've self-imposed on ourselves, they're ones who are going to be left out of the reckoning that is ultimately coming in retail.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I often like to ask our experts to peer into the future a little bit with my final question, and I'll do that today. So, Andrew, let's start with you. What future trends do you foresee coming up in unified commerce in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, and how should retailers prepare to take advantage of those trends?
Yeah, I don't think it's news to anyone that the big thing we're hearing at the moment is all about AI. And it's a great conversation. And as a technologist, it's fun. I mean, it's great to see some of the things that are out there. It's great to see the demos. It's great to see the edge of some of these things getting to production. I think as we go deeper on a lot of these conversations, what we're hearing is really unified commerce and unified data is prerequisite to really extracting what people want out of AI. It's really easy to say, AI is just a toy that I'm going to tack onto my system. But what we see is it doesn't work that way. If you don't have a strategy around data, if you don't have a governance process, if you don't have a unified commerce platform, you're really just bolting another bit on the edge, and it's not going to be effective. And your customers are going to know it. It's one thing to have, hey, I can get an AI experience at the drive-thru. That's fantastic. But what if the in-store experience doesn't match that? What if the online experience doesn't match that? And so really the great opportunity of unified commerce is it gives you that foundation for AI. It's super exciting. It feels like every week there's a new demo or a new technology out there. But I think what a lot of us understand is this is built on the foundation of a lot of technology that's come before it, and you have to get that right.
Mm-hmm. Jay, how about you?
Yeah, I think there's no limit to what a commerce touch point is going to look like in the future, from connected cars to smart cooler screens in retail. Like, just the possibilities of how we're going to be able to transact are infinite, right? And they're going to be enabled through what Andrew just said around AI. I think there's a fascinating trend right now where we're seeing what is retail, right? I mean, it's kind of going through an evolution. Retail companies are becoming media companies, right, through retail media networks. And, that inventory is only as valuable as being able to connect the dots for the end consumer. So what's going to happen in store around more IoT and connected devices to deliver on those experiences and fundamentally figure out how we transact differently, right? Self-checkout has been really an interesting kind of experiment. Walk out and go technology, interesting, right? There's all kinds of various things that we're seeing where we've experimented with this, but the way we transact with organizations and companies is going to be very, very different, and retail is going to take in a lot of different flavors. And I think that's the interesting part of this, is that you can't continue to keep up with the proliferation of endpoints and touch points if we do not have a consolidated view of our customer, we don't have a consolidated inventory, we don't have an understanding of our operations, and we don't understand how to move a customer through that journey from discovery, relationship, and ultimately affinity, right? Go back to the basics around the humanity of this and find those opportunities to connect those dots. And there's so much coming in retail, and I'm so excited about it. Stores are not dead. COVID proved that, right? People came back in a rush. They're just going to be reintroduced in a very different way, and we're starting to see some of that. But then the digital touch points that surround that, it's going to be a fascinating time. But now is the time to get the basics right, because this thing's going to accelerate very, very quickly, especially through the lens of AI, as Andrew pointed out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see all that happen too, gents. Well, listen, thank you so much. Andrew, Jay, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for coming as well. Another great expert session. And this is one in a 4-part series we have on retail. So if you like this one, check out the other 3 on artificial intelligence and data, cloud, and security. That and much, much more is out on WWT.com. We've got a great back catalog you can watch on demand anytime, calendar of stuff that's dropping in the future, so I encourage you to check that out. We'll always love to hear your feedback, so if you get that survey, please let us know how we did, or just drop us an email and tell us that too, or ask any questions you may have. With that, we'll wrap today's session. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.